This is my rubber band racer. The main rules of my competition were to use only 2 rubber bands to power a vehicle to go as far as possible. I set this project during the pandemic, which can actually be very hard for some of you, as you may not have the materials in your home to construct the racer, or even a smooth enough surface that is long enough for your vehicle to reach its max potential. Luckily, I was fortunate to have both of those, so my vehicle managed to reach a distance of about 13 meters. And here's why. To begin with, let me explain the main fundamental reason behind the rubber band racer. It's called mechanical advantage. Basically, mechanical advantage is the output force over the input force. This means you are able to move a greater distance and reduce the amount of force by a proportional amount. For example, I wouldn't be able to lift the world record holder of weightlifting at one go. I mean, come on, it's 170 kilograms of muscle, right? But I could lift 5 kilograms 34 times. This concept is at play time and time again with these vehicles. So, to have a long distance car, you would want to have the lowest fraction for mechanical advantage. To calculate mechanical advantage on my rubber band racer, I measured the diameter of the wheels and the axle, with the wheel being 36 times bigger than the axle. This means our mechanical advantage is 1/36. Using this information, we can infer that the racer will travel a distance of around 13 1/3 meters, as the distance between the rubber band and the axle is 37 centimeters, meaning 37 centimeters times 36 centimeters is equal to 1,332 centimeters, also known as 13 1/3 meters. These numbers are in an ideal world, however, and some of the energy from the rubber band would be lost to friction, from the axles and the car body rubbing against each other, as well as the wheels and the ground. But we'll talk about that a little later. Now with that out of the way, let's see how I built it. Firstly, I gathered all of my materials. I used rubber bands, obviously, paddle pop sticks, CDs, barbecue skewers, straws, a paper clip, bottle caps, and cardboard, aka a pizza box. Here was where I made hubcaps for my CD wheels. I did this by poking a hole using a box opener in the bottle caps and then gluing them to the center of the wheels. This was an easy yet effective way for my skewers to attach to the wheels. I then made the basic chassis for the racer. This is where I cut a piece of cardboard and another piece of cardboard at the bottom of it to try and keep it rigid. I added more support on the bottom a little later. This was where I added my front wheels. I first poked the skewer through the straw and then attached the wheels later. Although it felt tight, I added glue on the wheels and the axles to make sure they wouldn't eventually become loose. This was where my racer really started to become a racer, and not something to be thrown out. After attaching the rear wheels as I had done before, I then added more structural supports to the chassis to maintain its rigidity. Although you won't see any more of it soon, I added a lot more structural supports as the body often bent a lot at times. After this, I added a paper clip for my rubber band to attach to and 2 more structural supports on top to prevent it from flexing. Finally, we are finished! This was where I added a nose to extend the rubber band and added more structural supports, adding a rear spoiler at the same time. I'd love to say the rear spoiler had a function and it wasn't there just to look cool, but if I did, I'd be lying to you. Since we're done, let me tell you how it works. You would first want to get the rubber band and attach it to the rear axle. To do this, all you have to do is stretch the rubber band to make it reach the rear axle and attach it to where the 2 cut skewers are so that the rubber band doesn't fall off. Once that's been done, you want to wind up the rear axle, either using the wheel hubs or the actual skewer itself to wind it up. You want to keep doing this until there's no space for the cut skewers to fit in the rubber band. And that's pretty much it. All you have to do is let go and the rubber band car will go. The reason this works is because when you stretch a rubber band, it generates energy, and when you release it, it releases all its energy. This is why when you pull back a rubber band and shoot it at your brother, it goes, it flies. Pretty much the same thing applies here. Now with that out of the way, let's compare this prototype to my previous prototypes and see why this final version was far superior compared to the other ones. Here are my 3 previous races. Yes, I know, they all had 3 wheels and my latest one had 4, but that wouldn't have made a difference anyway, as they all account for the same amount of friction, just being less stable. But just focus on where the rubber band is located. Can you see it from this view? As you might have noticed, my previous prototypes had the rubber band close to the axles, therefore having a higher fraction for mechanical advantage. This means the wheels would spin out, being an inefficient use of energy. That's why in my final prototype, I placed the rubber band closer to the front of the vehicle, where I can have a lower fraction for mechanical advantage. One problem with this is that the rubber band may not stretch far enough, and meaning the rubber band may not be able to wind up on the axle or worse, break. This is why you have to try and find the sweet spot to where to place your rubber band. After trial and error, I finally found that sweet spot. Even still, my back wheels were still spinning out. This meant that I had to add something on the wheels to add enough friction. That's where my stock of electrical tape came in handy. Adding electrical tape to the wheels made a huge difference. The wheels stopped spinning out, yet it wasn't an overload of friction that made the racer reach its full potential. Here you can see a comparison between the wheels having electrical tape and the wheels not having it. As you can see, without electrical tape, the wheels would spin out, being an inefficient use of energy. With electrical tape, however, it added enough friction so the wheels wouldn't spin out, getting a good getaway. Now, onto what you've probably been waiting for, the performance runs. So, cue the tape! Here was my first run. Pretty good, eh? And to prove that wasn't luck, here are 2 more attempts. Now roll the editing! So yeah, that's pretty much it. For reference, my hull weight is about 13 meters long. So, since it hit it, but it was about to stop anyway, it probably would have hit about 13 1/3 meters. Anyway, that's the video. Hope you enjoy following my journey of planning and building my rubber band car, and seeing that how far a rubber band car isn't all trial and error, but can actually be calculated. See ya!
Artlist.io